Okay, so once you're done drawing all of your drawings, now I have to go through and start to dimension, right? So if I have my viewport here, put my single on, say okay, zoom this in, right? What yours should look like when you get here is basically this without the dimensions, right? Take this off, make this point 2 to 1, come around here, and the dimensions are not on there, right? So I'm just going to turn all those off just so that you're not looking at them. But this is what you should show up right now with. So now we have to put our dimensions on. Okay, so let's come back over here to model space. And you can see I already have mine on here. I'm going to, turn off my construction layer in my model space just so that I can get at these dimensions a little better. And then I'm going to delete them so I can explain how to put them on. So whenever we're putting our dimensions on, we want to make sure we're in the ISO dims layer. If we go to the linear and we start putting them on, our goal is to always keep all of your dimensions in between the views, like in this general area here, rather than outside. And the reason is because when I'm in this view, if I put a dimension on up here, I'm not going to see it. I don't want it to push up against my title lines. I don't want things to get confusing. So we want to try to keep them in between views. So I'm in my view here, my ISO dims. I'm going to go to dimension. And so, like, for example, I need the overall width of this object. So let's put it on from here to here and run that out. And you can see that my dimension is 1.39. I always say when you see weird dimensions like 1.39 and only 2 decimal points, you want to question that a little bit because the real dimension is 1.385, which is 1 3/8, especially when it comes close to like a common number like that, like 1 3/8. But right now our precision is only set to 2 decimal points, so we're kind of stuck with 1.39. There are ways to tweak it, but without overdoing it, we're going to leave it at that. When I put my dimension on, I need a second dimension on here. I'm going to put my 0.75 on, and I'm going to put it here. I don't need to put the last dimension on, right? The assumption is that the reader can take 1.39 and subtract it from 0.75 and be in good shape with that. I moved it out of the way so that this number wasn't sitting on that line. So good ideas like that. Another thing that's important is when you put your dimension on, if for some reason I had to put it on the outside, like there are times when dimensions need to go outside of views if there's too many of them. But if I did, what I don't want to do is this. See how my dimension line is riding all the way across my object line instead of on this side where it's coming right off the object. That's something that you don't want to do, so make sure you avoid those techniques. So, okay, let's keep going here. I'm going to put a dimension in here for the overall width, which, again, this is not ideal in the place that it ends up, but we'll take it for now and see how it goes. Make sure, I didn't say this at the beginning, but make sure that your annotative choices are on here so that we're putting on annotative dimensions. And that's going to help you because these things are going to show up a lot smaller when they go into paper space because we're going to end up at a scale of about 2 to 1. So let's keep going. I'm going to put a dimension here for this overall height and that 1. So now normally I would say this is a bad spot to put it because it's too big. And you can see that 1 is touching the object line on the left and it's starting to encringe in the object line on the right. But I have a feeling it's going to show up smaller in the next view. If that's not the case, we'll have to consider moving it in a little bit. But let's keep plowing through here. We also need this half-inch situation explained. So let's do it here. I can put a dimension up in here and keep it off my object. Some other little techniques and tricks that you want to make sure you don't do. You never want your dimensions to end up on the object. Like that would be a bad place to put this because it's inside of the object. Again, there are times when the necessity dictates that you do, but generally we try not to. So let's just leave this here and let's go look at it in ortho view. So I just did all those dimensions, they're not showing up. And they're not showing up because my dimensions were made in an annotated viewport, and in order to get them to come back up, I have to delete the viewport and put it back on. So VPO, single, say OK, click, and click. Zoom this around. We're going to make this scale 2 to 1. Move that around. And as I mentioned, look how much smaller a lot of my dimensions are now. Right now they're a lot more manageable. So I'm going to go through, I'm going to turn, double click inside again, turn the grid off. Right? If for some reason they were on when you got here, make sure that you, like I'm going to turn my construction layer back on just to have it on and then turn it off in the viewport. So it's on. If I go back to model space now, it should be on, right? Because we want it on, I will see that you did it correctly. But inside of the view here, down here in ortho, you should see that. Also, speaking of Ortho 25, if you have not renamed this name tag, make sure you name that Ortho 25. If you haven't set it so that your orthographic projection shows up, you do that by going to Drawing Utilities, Drawing Properties, and you see I've renamed my drawing name orthographic projection, and that'll show up here. If it doesn't show up here, just make sure you hit REA, which is regenerate, and then it will show up. So now that I have the smaller dimensions, I can make this a little cleaner. So I can move these, right, to maybe a little bit better, a little bit easier to read space. I can balance that one a little bit better than it was, maybe. Oops. Got to make sure you don't zoom in and zoom out like I just did, because you just set that scale. So I zoomed in for a little bit more accuracy. If I want to do that, I got to double-click outside, zoom in on the whole page, then double-click inside, then move it over. Okay? So, and then I just did something that is really difficult to deal with. So I'm going to go back out of that. You want to make sure that you don't do this. There's a way out. You have to Google it what it is. I always forget. But if you're zoomed so far in that you're only in the viewport and you double-click out, there's kind of no way out. See, I'm zooming in and out of the page here, right? But I can't get out. There's a trick. I can't remember what it is. I guess if you haven't run into that problem, we'll deal with it. But I'm just going to hit undo to get myself back out of here. So a better trick is making sure that you leave some of the viewport out before you double-click inside so that you have somewhere to click outside of, and then zoom out, and you end up in better shape. So that's pretty good for the first one. You see, I've got my other 4 drawings down here. I haven't named these yet. You're going to go through and name this, Ortho 26, 27, 28, 29, and then you're going to print them to a PDF. I'm going to take 2 seconds right now and do that so that you can see where we're headed. So I'm going to rename this one Ortho. Oop, got to be all caps. 26. Oops. Rename. Ortho. Oops. 27. Rename. 28. Okay. So now I've got those. And now let's just say all of my drawings are done. Like, obviously mine aren't done here, but let's just say they're all done. I'm going to lose my 25. Sorry, my 25 went missing somehow. So I'm hitting undo here until it comes back. There it is. I don't know what happened there. Sorry, I'm going to rename them again. Rename Ortho 26. Nope, that's not what I wanted. Oh, I need it here. That's what it was earlier. Here, you know what? I'll control Y and get them to all come back. Should at least. Nope, guess not. Alright. Rename Ortho 27. Alright, so there's my 4. So what I want to do is, the question is, once you've got them all done, which I don't, but if you had them all done, you're going to go through and you're going to print them to a PDF. So if I go to the big A, and I go to Publish, Print, and go to Batch Plot, it's going to bring up all of the drawings in my drawing right now. So I'm going to go and I'm going to delete the ones that I don't want. It's easier if you go all the way to the bottom here and just start hitting delete, 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 until it gets you up to 28. And then hit Publish. Make sure it's set to PDF here. Drawing to PDF, that's how that should go. Hit Publish, and then give it a place to go. I always like to dump my stuff on the desktop and then move it into my network folder. It's really up to you. Just got to make sure you clean up your desktop every now and again. So I'm going to do that, and I've done more than one of these so far. So I'm going to go to Tough Orthographic 1, sit Select. Do you want to save the list? You can, but I don't think you need to. So I said no. And now it's printing in the background. You can tell that it is because there's a little printer that's showing that right here. And then when it's done, your drawing will show up on the desktop. Like, here's actually the draw. It's starting to do it. Oh, maybe that's not what that is. But it's starting to publish. It'll take a little while. Rather than making us all sit here and watch this together, I'll leave you to work on that yourself. But if you have any questions, make sure you come up and ask. Good luck.